We are calling this meeting to order. We're having a minor technical difficulty. Zoom should be up within 10 minutes, so we're going to go ahead and go forward. Because we have had a change of membership on the board. I am at the moment for about the next 5 minutes, the highest ranking person on the committee. So that's why I called us to order. And we're going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Stand and join me. Stand here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. Next item on the agenda is introductions. And since I like to do things clockwise, we're going to start with Betty and go to
I'm Betty Gibbs, Secretary of the Electoral Board.
Steve Troxel, the Vice Chair of the Electoral Board.
David Levy, the newest member of the Electoral Board.
Julie Brown, Deputy Registrar.
Nancy Davis, Deputy Registrar.
Daniel Pence, Registrar.
Brenda Palmer, NAACP Rep.
Jeff Rossner, Lynchburg Democratic Committee, Authorized Representative, and Voter Protection Liaison.
David Newmeyer, citizen.
Carolyn Shreko, citizen.
Greg Barrett, Susan.
Peter Sepharadi, Observer.
Laura Sepharadi, citizen. Ross Webb, citizen.
Gary Woodson, citizen.
Okay. Now, the next item is reorganization of the electoral. By law, the person who is chair has to be from a different party than the person who is secretary. And the other person gets to be vice chair. So Betty has been secretary. Betty wishes to continue as secretary. And while there is a caveat where David could decide not to be chairman, he has not taken that option. So David Levy will be the chairman, and I think the board just needs to vote on that. We can do it by acclamation.
I would believe that Slade be elected as office of the board.
Okay,
Second.
all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? It's all yours, David.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to this challenge. I enjoy doing this, but it's going to be a great blessing to help the city of Lynchburg. We now move on to approval of the agenda and minutes. There has been an agenda circulated. Are there any proposals to the printed agenda to add to it?
Yes, I would like to add under new business, I would just like to add the topic of training the election officers.
What other proposals for adding agenda items? Is there a motion to approve the agenda as
So moved.
second? All in favor?
Aye.
We have circulated as well the minutes of the December 18th meeting. Are there any changes or amendments to those meetings?
I would just say that David has seen these minutes and made some suggestions to Betty, and I made a suggestion to Betty, but the minutes that are before us, I believe, are acceptable.
I think these are with those today.
Well, let me check one thing,
Yeah.
whether or not it's got the adjustments. Yeah, it's got the date correct. So you did my correct.
Recording in progress.
It also. Can we move on to the registrar's report? Mr. Tents?
Sure. Let me share my screen. See if we can get that up correct. Well, doesn't look like this is moving. No, it's not gonna take it. I may get some technical help here in a few minutes, but anyway, in the meantime, we'll just go ahead and go through it. Oh, I think it's gonna be here. Yeah, let's see if that works. Okay, there we go. Thank you.
Do we know if anyone is with us by Zoom?
I do have one person on Zoom.
Okay. Do we have a name?
It's 13.
Okay.
Looks like it's reversed though. Okay, that's the one. Okay, registrar's report for January 4th, 2024. Couple of things in our report, statistical reports that we normally do, budget report like we normally do. And I'm going to look at some ballot history so we can talk about a ballot order for this dual primary upcoming. And then we have a list of ongoing projects and some recommendations that I will make. So our first, get that comes back. Our first report from statistics is our registering counts by locality as of yesterday. And this is basically just showing you what is the active voters. Broken down by category, active, inactive, and total, and then a breakout also of military, overseas, and federal. And as you can see, we are sitting right now at a total all down at the bottom column there, 56,290 voters. Just a quick note, this is not showing additions, subtractions, this is just a snapshot point in time. And the next slide shows a little more detail on how we're moving up or down. Actually, this is locality statistic. This is the one before we look at the improvement, increase and decrease. This slide shows it is the up and down. And on the left-hand side, you see a starting total, and on the right-hand side, you see an ending total, and you'll see a net change column on the right-hand side. And then all of the categories in between tell you why something was added or deleted. The column headings don't tell you what's added and what's deleted, but you can, make sense that trans out means down, change out means down, just purge means down, deceased means down. A felony, income actually is in someone who's judged incompetent. Registrar error and out of state all are down, for choices all down. And the new reinstate, trans in, change in those are all, and re-registers are all income. Any questions on last slide of this slide?
Just noticing at the bottom of the previous slide, number of voters, both active and inactive, is 56,290. And then the statistics for the month of December, 56,320. So I'm not sure what day in December this was listed from, but we apparently a 30 vote change.
30 voters, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, well, December, this is actually taken as of the end of December. So this was, December 1 through December. Yeah, I think we're good at this point. So, thank you. Sorry, yeah. And the previous slide is as of January 3rd. So we've done some pre-processing, mostly from DMV, between
Okay.
those two dates.
Okay. It's kind of what I figured. Wanted to make.
This is the one I was referring to before, the statistical registration report. This tells you basically the source of all the incoming registrations. And you can see that for the month of December, we're tracking pretty much like most of the other months. We were, like I said, slightly up in the month of November because we had a gap. Middle of October, we stopped processing registrations from the DMV. You can see down the third line from the bottom of DMV. And then that jumps up at the end of November. And then we're back down to 1283, which is more in line with some of the other months in the year. And now with the whole year, you can see the total that we've processed in. And of course, this doesn't count people going out for various reasons, but we've processed in 24,271.
And this is all basically just transactions, not necessarily discrete new voters.
It's processing of transactions.
Like
Yes,
address changes and such as that.
yes, because the DMV will give us all.
Okay.
Here's our department budget. This is a report, basically a year-to-date budget performance report. And this shows you on the left column our adopted budget for 2024. Any budget amendments that have been made. And of course, this column actually does not, the budget amendments column does not include changes that are still coming for Q3. So we do have some budget amendments that will be taking place in Q3, which I will show you in the next couple slides.
And what date is this report effective?
I took this snapshot yesterday.
Okay, so they keep it up on a daily basis, unlike,
I mean, whenever you execute the report, it just goes ahead and grabs it's a report from work. So you just execute the report. It just tells you whatever it has at that point.
so everything that has been submitted shows up on this report. It's not like,
Correct.
it's not like a 2-week delay.
No.
Okay.
Although, having said that, if I submitted a particular invoice, if the invoice has not been processed yet, so that it takes them anywhere from one, I don't know, maybe up to a week, but usually less than that to process invoices. So it's possible an invoice or two didn't show up here. That was done in the last couple of days.
It's pretty close to accurate to the end.
But pretty close to accurate, that's right. So you can see our current month's transactions down the middle of the page, and a year-to-date transactions 2 columns over, and then a percentage. And you'll see for each of these, we are running somewhere between 52, 47, around 50%. We just page down to the next one here. Some cases we're running a little over, like in US postage, But part of that is because I've actually been charging a lot of the postage to the registrar's portion of the budget opposed to the electoral board's portion of the budget. So when we get to the end of the year, we'll even that out. So it won't be out of line.
Notice on page 1 that advertising is at 100%. Know that we had to put something in for the last election. Are we going to have to do advertising for each of the 3 elections coming up?
We will, but part of what I'm going to explain in a moment is that the costs for the presidential primary will be borne by the state. So I will be able to actually charge that back to the state. Now, what I won't be able to charge back to the state is the newspaper postings of the change in precinct. So we had a precinct change that I had to post, and that was $500 or so. So that's just something we have to bear. So
Is this a July 1 fiscal year?
that's correct. So the fiscal year goes from July 1 through 23. So just fiscal 24 is July 1 of 23 through July 1 of 24.
So our general election will fall in the next fiscal year.
Our general election will fall the next fiscal year. We will have one more election, but that's potentially in this fiscal year, which is a June primary.
Right.
So, and we'll have the March primary, obviously, but like I said, that we've actually put in a budget amendment covering what we think we'll spend on the city, and then we'll get that back to the state once we submit that. Okay. And final page just wraps up the electoral board's portion of the budget. So it's divided into the registrar, electoral board, and this is electoral board. You can see we haven't spent almost anything in the US postage over here, but we'll even that up between the registrar and electoral board. But we balance this all day this year. Okay. Other questions on this report?
I would like to ask if you could speak a little louder.
Sure, sorry. I'll sit up straight in my chair.
Do that.
Like my mother always taught me, speak up and sit up straight in your chair.
That or swap seats with Julie, one of the 2.
Okay. Besides the question of sitting up straight in my chair, is there anything else that someone wants to ask? Okay. This is the third quarter budget adjustment. So this basically goes to, you can see at the bottom here, we've outlined what it is why we're asking for some additional budget. This basically is about the presidential primary. Pretty much this should cover what we need. This is our estimate based on previous presidential primaries. One thing I don't have on this because we didn't have it organized at that point, but we do now. On the right here, you see project and sub-projects. So I've worked with the finance department so that we're able to identify every election, not just the presidential primary, but every election going forward with a project, sub-project. That'll allow us later on to have not just for this election to turn it to the state, but also to have really look at each election kind of as its own microcosm and figure out, hey, what did it cost us to run this election? So that's the mechanism that this network allows you to use to do that kind of thing. So I've asked the finance department to set up some codes. They've done that. And we'll be using them starting very soon because we have early voting coming up. Our personnel costs for early voting will get rolled into that project for that election.
Now, how do you segregate the cost by state refunded versus locality?
So the rule of thumb is anything that you would do anyway, meaning, if I had people coming into the office to do other office work that wasn't related to the voting, then that would be something that would be borne by the city, by the bigger budget. But if I had costs that are, related specifically to the March 5th primary, then the state is obligated to reimburse us. So, one of the reasons I want to put this project code set up in here is so that in the future, if there's any question about what was allocated to how, what, and why, we'll be able to go literally line by line and say, well, here's all of it in this project. And we can, you know, explain this is what the cost was and what's what we're doing. Question?
I was looking, I didn't ask it then because I saw that we were going to get the third quarter adjustments. Unless I'm reading this incorrectly, we are at halfway through, we're at 64% budget.
For the electoral board, we are at 34%. Sorry, I need to look at my screen here.
36.
36, and we are for the registrar, we are at 64. So
You get two things there. You get,
63 and 36.
I mean, I'm looking at item 55990. And you go across there and that says 36, then directly below it's sub-department 0151 electoral board. That says 63, and then 2065 registrar totals is 64. So is the electoral board budget 36? That's not what this is, unless I'm just reading this, which is probably quite possible.
Well, so I've had this conversation with the finance department a little bit, and they're a little loosey-goosey with this, because they say, well, as long as you're, you know, staying within your overall numbers, then we'll even everything out with journal, the journal entry, and just match it up. So, the big number at the bottom is really what they care about. Now, I'm going to note that when I was doing the budgeting for 2025, one of the things that jumped out at me was we had a overrun. Let me just see. We budgeted 53,900 for temporary personnel services, this under the electoral board, and 12,000 for miscellaneous contractual services. We actually spent in 2023, 75,098 and 69,964. So we ran over last year. And the budget probably from 23 to 24 stays flat. They want you to stay flat as much as possible here. So we ran over by about $50,000 last year. And my guess is that they ended up with a budget adjustment at the end of the year to try to look out for that. So let's see if we can stay under that.
Yeah.
That's the goal.
When is the budget to be put together to be submitted to the city?
So I had an initial meeting with the city manager for the 2025 budget 2 weeks ago, week and a half ago. And so that's the first cut of it. At some point, I think they try to nail it down later this month or maybe in February, but obviously it doesn't start officially until the bottom of the year, until it's July.
Okay. And the only reason I brought it up was I saw 64% and I saw budget adjustment. So I'm just curious whether this budget adjustment was going to take care of this.
Yeah, so this budget adjustment will go in there and it will change those numbers.
Okay.
But the
Not
budget,
completely.
well, right, the budget adjustment also is because we're knowing we're going to spend money for the election, March 5th, and then we're going to backfill. So some of it depends on how accurate my budget adjustment has been for the election. And if, we spend more than that, and the state will give us back more than that. But we'll see how it lines up. And like I said, I made that projection based on previous years' information. So hopefully it's pretty accurate. We'll see.
Thank you.
Okay. Ongoing projects. Basically, this is just a sheet that we keep updating. Kept everything that was on the open list on the sheet here. Top item we've talked about before. We have got our grant, but apparently we need to file more paperwork. So I'm working with Piper for emergency management department to get that paperwork sorted out. This is really in her court mostly. I sent her a note this week saying, hey, let me know what you need from me. I haven't heard back, but I'm sure that we'll proceed as, you know, as time goes on here. We have a couple of years to spend the money, so we're not in any rush. I have another open item, which I would like the board to look at along with me, which is segregation of duties document. We have, we've done, I think we've gone cut our electoral board manual, an election officer manual, and we'd love to have a registrar office manual, update policies, get that all kind of freshened up. But part of that, leading into that, is segregation of duties. There's a outline of that. I think it's been pointed out for in the grad handbook, and that's a good starting place. And I think actually, Doc, you and I had passed a spreadsheet back and forth now a while ago that may have some recommendations as well.
Yeah, I think I got a copy of something from one of the other jurisdictions. And you and I talked about that a bit. We haven't done a lot with it, but that's also a good starting point to look at how others do it.
So that's, I think, something just open item. We still have electronic poll books that we are trying to clean up. I am actually talking to the city again about how we dispose of those. They had a reluctance to get involved, but I just had another conversation with Matt from the procurement department. He's now dragging IT back in, so we'll see what happens with that. We approved in our last meeting, beginning to update our ballot scanning equipment. So we now have the FVS machines, and right now we're slated to get 2 of those coming up on January 15th. Yes, question?
Oh, so I don't know if it was on here. I don't know if it was just empty, but so did you get the new equipment?
No, January
Is
15th.
that what you're saying?
Yeah, January 15th.
Okay.
So they're coming in to just walk through some LNA testing with this. But since we're going to be, our plan right now is to use that new equipment for early voting.
When is LNA?
We have that scheduled for the 15th.
Oh, okay.
So they're going to come in, they're going to bring some equipment with us. They're going to show us, whatever, how it works. I'm assuming my electoral board will be there, at least some of you, for LNA testing, right? That's part of
When will that be?
the 15th of June.
Yeah, from 9 a.m. until noon. And I rescheduled an appointment, so I know.
Okay. Yeah, and we'll try and do as best we can to keep it between 9 and noon, but it's not as extensive, obviously, as doing the full LNA testing for the whole set of precincts, but I want to make sure they really walk through with us all the things we want to know about the machine. So definitely want to be
Now, is there any date anticipated for the second wave of the new equipment?
We need to continue to talk about that, so we haven't set that. I did have a conversation with the finance department when we were talking about budgeting for 2025. Their recommendation was, because the city council has allocated $100,000 this year, should you need it, and we should need it for buying as many of the new equipment, ballot scanning equipment, as we can. But I think it's still to be discussed. We have an open item which we're working on, relocation of precinct 204. We've had publications out in the paper 21st and 28th of December. So that piece of it has been completed. There's a 30-day public notice period. There's a January 9th city council public hearing. And then beyond that, we have to get the approval of the Attorney General that he has, I think, 60 days in order to respond to that. We have to give a notice to voters if we're making this change for whatever election we do. If it's March 15th, we have to get a notice out to them 15 days at least in advance. And not more than, I think, 3 weeks. So we have a little window there which we have to hit. So if it seems like we're going forward with this for the 15th, we'll have some work to do. And there'll be some mailing costs and some other costs that we have to absorb as part of this change.
Oh, I'm sorry, one place ahead of myself.
Okay,
Does anyone need to appear at the city council on the 9th?
I'm planning to be there. I don't think I'm on the agenda to say anything, but you never know, they might call somebody. So if look, any or all of the electoral board members wanted to represent for that, yeah, that would be great.
And under last update, at the work session, I don't know that they took a vote, or did they take a vote? I thought they had to wait until after the public comment before they moved to approve it.
Yeah, so maybe that word is a little aggressive. Maybe it wasn't approved. Maybe it was just approval to go forward with the public hearing. But anyway, it was,
Just decided to go forward.
yeah, it's not a done deal until they finish the public hearing and then they, but anyway, that's the state we're in. And the last item here is page program restart. We've got approval as of last meeting to do that. Julie is engaged with that now, and so we will try and get some pages lined up for our next our next election. Okay. Any other questions on this?
Maybe excused from school.
I think school's closed. Well, I think school's closed, yeah, because we're using some schools for precincts, so I don't think that we have.
Good.
Okay, so let's talk about our ballot order. So we have the challenge, which we haven't had in several years. I think 2016 is the last time we had a dual primary, where both parties are going to have a primary on the same day. And we are required to present ballots to voters from one party or the other, whichever they choose to vote, and tally that, obviously separately, and manage that whole situation. So our programming of the poll books has to change for that. That's in process. The program of our scanners has to be adapted for that. And then actually ballots have to be separately done. So the question is, how many ballots do we order? And how many ballots of vote do we order on each? So what Doc suggested, which I think is a fine suggestion, is look at previous year's turnouts versus the registered voters to see what we might need to order. It has to be broken down by precinct because every ballot now has to have its own, every precinct has its own ballot, which has to be separate, distinct from all the other ballots. So our order will not be across the jurisdiction, it will be four per precinct. So that's how we've broken it out here. So just at a high level, you can see we have anywhere between, what's my low number here?
15%,
15
202.
to 61, right, percent.
Correct.
So there's quite a variation. And this is combining, I did for this particular slide, I combined both the Democratic turnout and Republican turnout, just to look at the kind of overall turnout.
But you'll have to place a ballot order by each party.
So the total turnout was on the order of 34%. So let's go to the next slide. And I didn't have a Republican primary in 2020, right? No Republican presidential primary. There was an incumbent on the ballot, and there was no. So we have to compare now 2020 turnout for Democrats and 2016 turnout for Democrats. See what the percentages look like. So you can see in the slide here, I have varied from literally 1%, 1 or 2%, up to what's my high number here? About 29%.
Amazing.
Right? But the important thing to me is you'll notice that in 2020, we had a percentage of 16% for the total jurisdiction. And in 2016, we had a percentage of 11%. So why is that, and what does that tell us? Any questions on the numbers here?
And 2020 is percentage of Democrats because it was a Democratic on the
It
primary.
was only Democrats.
And in 2016, you took the Democrat numbers.
Well, 2016, I showed both numbers, so if you look back at the
Well,
previous slide.
yeah, I mean, you showed it there, but then on this page 2 thing,
Correct, I wanted to compare.
the 16, the percentage was the percentage of Democrats.
Exactly.
Out of
Apples to
total
apples.
number of voters or out of,
This is a total number registered on this column here. So I tried to compare apples to apples from election to election with Democrats to see if I could see what that total.
because people don't register by party, therefore you have to use the numbers of.
Correct, I only have total registered.
I mean, what are the consequences of moving forward with the number of ballots?
You waste paper.
You know, but cost,
Yeah, I mean, you waste cost, yes.
but there shouldn't be a significant cost waste because the setup is
And it depends on how much you order over.
right.
So I don't think you've had the privilege yet of being on the EV list. I think both Doc and Betty have been on the EV list, and I'm sure they can comment on what has been kicked around the EV list.
Yeah, at one point, we were paying 25 cents per ballot.
Yeah,
When you buy their equipment, you gotta use their paper.
which may not always be the case, but that has been the case. And the reason, by the way, for what it's worth, the reason is because that paper, they use paper that they know will read on their. And you want to make sure whatever paper you end up buying, that it reads on the scanner, because if it doesn't, it's on us.
Yeah. I'm not sure what year it was. I don't know if Jeff or David remembers it. We had that special election to replace Tom Garrett in the state senate. And they ordered a normal number, but they did not factor in the fact that it would determine control of the Senate. And it was a very high profile race, and they ran out of ballots. And I happened to go to the State Board of Elections meeting when the Lynchburg Electoral Board had displayed themselves. I don't want to go to a meeting like that. What they did was they were making copies at a copy center of ballots.
Yeah.
And if they would scan, they scanned, and if they didn't, they hand counted them at the end of the day. And it is what it is. We don't want to have to do that.
Right.
And so when we get around to talking about ballots, we can talk about what percentages we need and come back to these numbers.
When are you going to
Yes.
be ready to recommend?
Well, so I'm going to give you my thoughts. I've got a couple more, in a slide or two, I'll give you some thoughts, but I'm happy to, if you want to say what other people's thoughts too. That's great to hear, because what's here is just some of my thoughts around the whole macro picture of the.
Well, it's the next item on the agenda after your report, so we kind of segue between the two just by continuing on.
Okay, so my observation was 2016 had no incumbent on the ballot, so that's one factor that maybe drives turnout. Number two, Virginia has a practice of no party registration, and that allows for crossover primary voters. In other words, people who might normally consider themselves to be of one party may request a ballot for the opposite primary in order to influence the other primary. Races in other states, this is pointed out by another registrar, which I thought was interesting. Races in other states prior to the March 5th primary may have a significant impact on voter turnout. So if something happens in a different race that changes the calculus that's generally expected, then that may impact turnout one way or another, up or down. Other political factors. This round we had court decisions that might have a significant impact on voter turnout. In 2016, there were no 45 days of early voting. Now there is, which may also change our turnout. In 2016, there was no requirement to have ballots separated by precinct. Now each precinct must have enough ballots for all voters in the precinct. So if you were going to try and cheat a little bit by using the same ballot across the whole jurisdiction, and you could swap 403 for 402, you can't do that. So now you have to essentially order every single precinct, what you expect to be in that precinct. In no case, like Jock was saying, do we wish to run out of ballots in election day or in early voting, right? So those two would both be very bad. And also local costs for presidential primary are reimbursed by the state.
Which
So,
is significant.
right, so even though I, one conservative with taxpayer money, it's not just local taxpayer money we're talking about, it is state that will be reimbursing us for this. So here's my thoughts, which you're welcome to take for what they're worth and follow whatever recommendation you decide. We get to that. In a dual primary, it seems to me, looking at the numbers we just looked at, historically, about 5% of Democrats cross over to vote in a Republican primary. And let me just scroll back a slide or two. You notice the difference between these two turnouts is about 5%. And my thinking is that that'll come back a little bit. Part of the reason is because in 2020, there was no Republican primary to vote, right? So if you were voting Democratic primary, you were just voting on the Democratic ticket. In this one, you were voting potentially Republican or Democrat. And it seems possible to me that there were Democrats who decided they wanted to weigh in on the Republican side in that election. So if that's the case, it's something for us to think about in our ballot. Republican turnout in the last dual primary was double Democratic turnout. For whatever reason, it's, they were around 11%, and Republicans were around 20-something%. Republican turnout was much higher than Democratic turnout in the primary. Overall turnout in the last dual primary was generally more than 1/3, but in some precincts it was as high as 61%. So we need to figure out, worst case scenario, if we get at least this many people out to vote, we want to make sure we have balance for everybody. Based on the last election, this is just November's numbers. Early voting now comprises about 20% of the overall vote. So looking at the turnout numbers, turnout for early voting was about 20% of the total. Okay, so here's what I think, for what it's worth. I think we should, number one, order half the ballots we believe we use overall in time for early voting. That means we front load our, remember, we're doing two-stage order, right? We're doing an early voting order, so make sure we have ballots on hand, ready to go, fully, adjudicated for the 19th of January. Then we have a secondary order, which we will place to make sure that we have enough for election day. So we can use ballots that are ordered for early voting. We can refer them back over into regular voting, just like in the precinct, right? So as long as we have extra ballots for early voting on election day for a particular precinct, they could be moved into use on election day. So I think we should basically adjust that, front load our ballot order for early voting, and also gives us the ability to adjust our estimate for the remaining ballot order based on the first couple weeks of the vote. So if we see our turnout is higher than we expect, then we can take our second stab at it and adjust that way. If we see it's lower than we expect, then we can adjust if we need to the direction. So I think we should plan for an overall order of 50% of registered voter for Democratic ballots and 70% of registered voter for Republican ballots.
And essentially, you're saying 120% of
That is
the
correct.
overall
That's correct.
voter base, there would be ballots. I don't see how that would go wrong.
Yeah, and so other registrars have said, we're just going to order 75% of both, and if we have leftover, we know we'll be good. So that's 150. So that seems like we don't have to go quite that high, but I'm amenable to your thoughts on it. So that's just my opinion.
What day does early voting start?
19.
Okay. So question, how long does it take to get ballots?
So coming out of this meeting, once you guys give me some recommendations, probably tomorrow, I'll pick up the phone and call my scanner vendor and start to get that ballot order started for early voting.
So that's about 2 weeks from.
Yeah, they can turn around sometimes quicker than that, but, no reason to wait once we've made a decision.
So you order them tomorrow, 2 weeks from now, we should have them in. In another 2 weeks, you determine, oh, we need more, we need less. Then it's another 2 weeks, which is still plenty of time prior to, yeah. Because we would have them in after 28 days.
Yeah.
And we have 45 days of early voting.
Yeah, I mean, I think they'll typically take less than 2 weeks, but, I'm a conservative, cautious person. I'd rather make sure we have that order. But for the election day, I do think we could order them, as late as, in February, if we had to.
Okay. The timing on that could be a little fluid. And I'm noticing that we've got, 102 has 44%, 103 has 47%, and 105 has 46%. 302 has 61%, which is Liberty. And nobody else has more than 36%. So, I would hate to buy way too many because of 61% at one precinct. I am noting that we've got 47% at 103. That's divided between two parties. So, do we need 120% any place other than at 302?
I picked 120 because I thought that was a safe number. So if you like to live more dangerous than I do, then I'm fine for you to tell me you want to do that.
I agree it's a safe number. I'm just asking questions because I want to make sure it's a reasonable number. So, yeah, nobody knows what reasonable is because we don't have party registration in the Commonwealth of Virginia.
Right, and we don't know what's going to happen between now and election day. Like you said, it turned out that, that one Senate race controlled, the whole ball of wax from the perspective of control of the Senate. So we don't know what's going to happen between now and election day that may impact turnout one way or another. So
This is a very volatile year.
yeah,
So it's really dangerous to be conservative.
Careful how you say that.
It's dangerous to be cautious.
To be overly cautious on our ballot order. And I concur. I mean, it's just, you will find that I like to question and make sure that I fully understand.
It's useful.
And, that's why I'm asking these questions. I didn't say I was going to vote against it. I just want to understand why we're going there.
I don't know any registrar who's going to be more conservative than this. I know registrars who are going to be less conservative than this. I don't know any registrars.
So you think this is generally what's going on across the board, across the Commonwealth?
I think that when Walt Latham says order 75%, that's probably most of the registrars are going to do just that.
We're doing 50% Democrat and 70% Republican.
I think that, my view is that's probably a safe number, and I wouldn't want to go lower than that, but like I said, I will.
Well, you don't happen to have, so far as these percentages of people who actually voted, you don't have a general idea over the past number of elections, what percentages in each of those precincts were Democrat versus what percentages were Republican?
You could go by the general and say for government and see the percentage that went.
But I'm not seeing it, so we don't have that available to us. And we do need to go ahead and make an order because we're going to have it by the 19th.
Yeah, so we need to make a decision pretty soon. If not today, tomorrow, then sure.
Well, I don't have the information that I need to say that we need to do less than this. And like I said, I don't want to stand in front, or sit in front of the state electoral board to explain what we were too conservative.
I mean, if someone else asks why we spent this much money, I think we can certainly say there were many other jurisdictions that decided to do more.
Good.
Yeah.
Further report?
I just only announced its recommendations. First of all, we will have our online testing on January 15th. So we will be working, as I imagine some of you will as well. But the office itself will be closed to the public because it's a holiday.
Just out of curiosity, were all the office personnel able to take off the scheduled holidays immediately past? In other words, nobody had to work on Christmas or New Year's.
No one was working on Christmas or New Year's, and the 26th was also a holiday, so we got that holiday as well.
Good.
But seeing as we'll be working on the 15th, we'll also be working on help me out here, President's, this is, what's it, February's President's Day, right? I think that's in the middle of February, so we won't be able to take that day off. I think we've decided Memorial Day was also in the middle of early voting. So I think our next holiday is going to be July 4th. I think that's
What time do staff get as compensation for this?
yeah. So the way the city works it is, as far as I understand, and Nancy is our resident, HR, hours person, but she also goes back to personnel to make sure we have it all straight. But you do get comp time if you work a holiday. So you're able to work those as additional hours. So you pay for working, but you also get additional hours for.
And last month, the electoral board approved, yes, giving comp time if they have to work on a holiday. So I didn't realize it was in the city policy, but yeah, we want them to have their holidays even if they can't have it on a holiday day.
Yeah, I want these two ladies to be mentally healthy because that's what keeps me mentally healthy.
Yeah. And the only purpose behind my question was whether or not we had any substitute comp, any comp days needed to be scheduled, but apparently we are not there yet, but we will be soon. That was the purpose of my question.
Okay, that's the end of my report. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. Let's move on to old business. Are there any items of old business to bring up?
I don't think so. We're still waiting on a report from Piper. In anything that's in the ongoing project, I don't think any of those things have anything that we need to take care of at this point. City council next week, waiting on Piper for that, waiting for IT. So I think everything here is just no action is needed by the board for old business this meeting.
Certainly. Shall we move on to new business, ballot order for the March presidential primary?
Interesting segue.
Any motion on this subject?
I will make a motion that we order 70% Republican ballots and 50% Democrat ballots on recommendation from the registrar for the March.
Second motion. Anyone readiness on voting? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
No one opposing, motion passes. Okay, the second order of business was training. Who wants to talk about that?
Well, we're going to need to train our election officers. Let me back up a second. So we just extended the appointment of election officers that worked this past election. And so now the only additional training most of them need is to learn how to conduct a dual primary, presidential primary. The great thing is, Mr. Newmeyer, you will love this, no write-ins in a primary. So, yeah, so we'll have to have that kind of training, and then not long after that, we'll have to get back to training, because at next month's meeting, we may have some new election officers to appoint who will be brand new and will need training from ground zero.
Do we need to take any action today in the training?
No, just to plant the thought.
Unless we want, well, do we, we'll just schedule the training. We don't need to have a board vote on it.
No.
Okay. Now, I do have a question for clarification. If we approve someone to become an election official at the February meeting, and their appointment takes effect on March 1st, can we do training in February prior to their appointment taking effect? Or do we have to wait until their appointment becomes effective?
I don't see why we can't train them and
Sure.
have them ready to hit the ground running.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that. It's a great question. Clearly, 4 days is a little tight for training people, if we had to do that. So, maybe we get some advice on that.
For me as a new person here, how will we know if we have new election officials to approve at the February?
Get applications from them.
We get applications. Go ahead.
Or names are recommended by the party chairs.
And have the party chairs been reached out to?
No, I will be doing that after this meeting.
I do expect we'll have some new people coming, so I do expect that's going to happen.
We had several people there's a place on provisional ballots where they can indicate interest in being an election officer. We had a number of people, was it a dozen, who indicated interest in being an election officer.
It was more like 21 or something.
We had a bunch of folks, so we need to take those into
Who reaches
consideration.
out to those people?
I did. I emailed all of them with the application.
And generally, it's a concerted effort where Betty and Julie kind of tag team with each other to make sure that everything is covered.
And perhaps it will be in that process. Let me say, in the context of training, I'm going to the February 2nd training that VIVA is running, planning to do that. And there is training in association with the statewide meeting in March. Are there other board members who want to take to that?
It's for new board
Well,
members.
just the boot camp.
Just the
Boot
boot
camp.
Oh,
Okay, so you're going to a boot camp in February. There's a boot camp the day before the statewide meeting.
2 days.
Well, last year I went to boot camp the day before the day and a half regular VIVA meeting. So all I'm saying is if you go to boot camp, there's still the regular VIVA meeting that we can all go to. If you did not make it to the February boot camp, then there is the boot camp prior to the regular meeting. And I think it would behoove the three of us plus Dan at minimum to go to the meeting and
March.
so long as you get the boot camp in, it doesn't matter which one you go to. So,
Okay,
But the training we're talking about is obviously election officer training.
right. I think you know.
So, yeah, so, right, so just to kind of catch you up on kind of what we've done before, is we did break our training up in the last round into a lecture series and into hands-on training. And the way we did hands-on training, we found that it's best to have people on the order of groups of maybe 15, 16, something like that, not too much bigger than that, for hands-on training. So we would aim potentially to do that format if possibly. Although for just the dual primary training, it probably wouldn't need to be as long as extensive, right? And we do have the slides from our lecture up on the website, which we could reuse in some fashion for passive training.
the comments that we got, a lot of people thought that our lecture training was, or they loved the depth of the lecture training. So far as the hands-on training, the comments that I got was they wish they had had more time to put their hands on the equipment.
That's it.
So, you know, I think we might want to revisit how we do that. And instead of having like a 2-hour session where 15 or 20 people come in, maybe set up some equipment downstairs, and let them make appointments to come in so that someone either from the registrar's office or the electoral board is there to help them get comfortable with the equipment. And I also know that the chiefs asked that, that we give them more training on how to fill out the forms. And also, I asked a number of them, and they said they would much prefer that we break the training up over the course of the year instead of trying to cram it all in at one time because there's too much coming in. So while I think that there were a lot of pluses in how we did it, there's always room for improvement. And so I think we should take a second look at how we can do more individualized hands-on training without hog-tying the registrar's office so they can't do their job. So we have to, you know, keep both of those things going and have the electoral board available and maybe, you know, have some of our chiefs or someone might volunteer, however we want to do it. But just for those people that just want to be more comfortable, figure out a way to do that. And also, I know if we had a lecture session, the first one I would have for chiefs and anybody else who wanted to come is how to fill out the forms. And frankly, the way I would do it is give everybody a form and say, okay, now let's talk about how we fill out this form. Let's talk about how we fill out this form. And, because I know we covered all of that, but we were flying through it so fast. I'm not surprised that some people missed some points. So when we talk about the training, there are some things we specifically have to do prior to primary, because it's dual primary. But there are other things that I think it would behoove us to do for the sake of improving the quality and the training of our individuals who are actually performing functional election.
Dan, who is in charge of setting up the training of structure?
I mean, basically, we worked with the electoral board, but we went ahead and sent out, set up the dates. And Betty was, I guess she was chief in chasing people into training, right?
Yes, I
So,
was hunting them down.
yeah, but we went ahead and set up a schedule, which I imagine we'll do again, for the various types of training that we decide we're gonna do. I think we do need to do chief training, like we mentioned, this is kind of a specific item, as well as training everybody on the dual primary differences. Hopefully, we have now people who've just gone through training for this election. And so some of the stuff that we do for basics won't be so necessary for everybody. For the new ones, we'll have to figure out what we do to kind of get them up to speed with the rest of everybody else. So.
Anything more on training? Any other items under business? Then we now move on to the public comment period. Are there any members of the public present who'd like to comment? Yes, sir.
Yes, I'm Jeff Rosner, Health Representative and Voter Protection Liaison for the Lynchburg Democratic Committee. I have a technical question about the Registrar's Office website.
Yeah.
It appears that yesterday or today that website was integrated into the city's website, which has also been changed.
Yeah.
But previously, that is as of yesterday, it was possible to go into the website, this is the old website, and get the agenda of the upcoming meeting and the minutes of the previous meeting in advance of the actual meeting. Today, that was no longer possible. So my question is whether there are plans to restore that capability for members of the public going into the website. Because that would be, I think, quite important for transparency.
Do you want me to comment on that, or?
Let's wait until after
Okay,
public
yeah,
comments,
sure.
then we can respond.
Other comments, and then we'll respond. Carol?
I have a question about point of clarification. The new equipment, the scanning equipment, you're gonna have LNA and you're gonna be using it for early voting. Will there be the new equipment for the primary, or is that going to be later?
We're gonna try and put it in place for this March primary. That's
So you'll
our,
have a whole. Not on March 5th, no.
no?
Not for every precinct.
I thought he was
Oh,
talking
no,
about.
just for early voting.
Just early voting, yes, I understood that, but for the precincts, no.
No, we won't have, yeah, sorry, we won't have it, right,
Let's just make a note of questions, and we'll respond to those that require a response.
That's all.
Any other comments before we respond to Jeff? Okay, Dan, do you know?
Yeah. So the city decided they were gonna go to a new website vendor, and so I actually, they had some training sessions. I went through a training session for how to do the new website. But they said, oh, don't worry, we have, the vendor's gonna migrate everything over from the old website to the new website. So I took a look at what they were doing, and then I realized, oh, they took a snapshot of the website like 2 months back. And of course, we've updated, it updates constantly, right? As we put out new minutes, we put out all kinds of new stuff. So, and it changes because I put out public notices of things, whatever, on the website. So I came in like you did today. I was like, oh, they really did not send it over correctly. So there was a whole big section, particularly the electoral board and meetings, all this stuff, but they just completely ignored that, just dropped that. So as of 10 a.m., it wasn't showing. As of before I came into the meeting, 3:30 or 3 p.m., whatever, I actually had managed to go ahead and get that agenda and the minutes up on the website. So yeah, we're gonna get it all back in place, but it's gonna be a bit of a pain in the neck. It's gonna take some work. They didn't do a great job at migrating. I have a meeting with the guy from the public affairs to try to see if we can get some help getting it all straightened out. Like one of the new website, you don't see, like in the old website, you had the accordion, you could drop it open, you could pull it, put it together, so you could look at things kind of one at a time. I don't see that feature in the new website, so I have some pointed questions for him about how to get the look and feel of the new website like the old website, and then get all the content that they did move over actually in place. So yeah, it'll improve over time. I'll get to that as fast as I can.
You might mind them to change the names of the members of the electoral board.
Yeah, so that's another thing, exactly. So there's a whole bunch of, details like that. I'm gonna have to go through, the old website and the new website and just read it with a fine tooth comb to make sure it's all, accurate now. Because,
It was a shock.
Tempted to build a new web company for all of your time and effort.
yeah, I hear
Any other public comments? Yes, ma'am.
I'm glad to hear about the training and about on the forms. And I'm glad to hear that you're gonna spread it out, not try to cram everything in 1 or 2 days.
Good.
So I salute you for that.
We
What's the
do
trouble?
we do listen to the public and to our officers.
Make sure you hear me.
I'm all ears.
Well,
Thank you.
with that, shall we close the public comments? Thank you. Any other items on the agenda, or? are we-
I would like to make a motion. I move that we adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Uh,
Anyone opposed? And it's passed.